crying in tears. She's like, I feel freedom.
And I will never forget it.
Bueno, y para celebrar nuestro aniversario, nuestro primer aniversario de Los Miserables en Venezuela y unirnos a la celebración de los 35 años de su estreno a nivel mundial, hemos preparado un encuentro muy especial con el compositor de Los Miserables, Claude Michel Schönberg, que además tuvimos el privilegio de tener aquí en Venezuela. Welcome, Claude.
Welcome, Claudia. Hola.
¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien, but very bored.
Very bored. We all are very bored, Claude.
I don't know how to say it in Spanish, but
aburrido. Estoy muy aburrido.
Yes, and more than that.
But Claude, I wanted to give this gift to those, not only to Venezuela, but whoever wants to listen to our unique story behind Les Mis. Our experience in Venezuela was very special. We were very fortunate to have the rights to do Les Mis last year and the pleasure to have you here. And for us, it's very special to know what your experience was like here in Venezuela. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
I was quite interested to come to Venezuela to help you putting together the production of Les Mis. Because to be true, I was in Venezuela in 1973 for the first time. And I thought that the country was El Dorado, because it was a beautiful country with beautiful girls, beautiful beaches, plenty of oil, and for me it was the future of the world. And after I heard that the life was very difficult, and when you came to London with the conductor, what's her name?
Elisa Vegas.
With Elisa, I thought, my God, they are so bold, they are so courageous to try to put together something like Les Mis in Caracas. So I came to try to help you to put it together. And I must say that it was quite a challenge, a very interesting challenge. But it's like everything. When it's difficult, it's hard, it's bumpy, plenty of problems. That's something you will never forget. And I will never forget it.
I'm glad to hear that. And do you think Venezuela adds a little piece of history to these 35 years that we're gonna celebrate on the 8th?
That's the genius of the writer Victor Hugo. Because when you speak about freedom, about exploitation of man by man, about liberty, and in every country where Les Mis have been, there was always a good reason for the country to recognize itself on stage. Yeah. And obviously, when the company started La Canción del Pueblo, and I saw the reaction of the audience, I was quite moved, because I knew that they have been singing it in the streets during all the protesters, and there was even few people on stage that I have to tell them, calm down, calm down. It's the show, you are not in the streets. So, but I understood the vibration and the feeling that the audience will have listening on stage a song that they have been singing in the street to protest. But at the opposite, I remember the first morning, when the day before I asked everybody to come at 10:30 to start to rehearse. Yeah. And I saw somebody walking slowly at 11:15, arriving on the stage, saying hello. And with a little bit of luck, everybody was there around 12. That's when I got pissed off.
Yes.
And maybe you remember that I told them, okay, I'm coming from Europe to work with you. If tomorrow you're not sharp on time, I'm taking the first plane back
home.
But they are lovely people, and I say I didn't have any problem with the rest of my stay there. And they were working so hard in such difficult conditions.
Yeah.
And they were lovely people, and all the principal character, and they've been working so hard.
Yeah.
And you have been working so hard with Rodolfo, because when we had that flood in the pit 24 hours before we opened with the aircon not working, lack of batteries for the sounds, the poor people of the sounds completely, it was quite an experience I never had before. But to see the people giving a standing ovation for those courageous actors, and they hear, and all over Europe or in America and Australia, they don't realize the comfort of life they have and the good condition they are working.
Yeah.
Such they don't have to care about anything but to be good on the stage.
Yeah.
And there in Altereza Carreño, they have to work against everything.
Exactly. I think that
was very interesting.
I think that's something that drove us to do Les Mis and do it in such conditions, despite all the difficulties. I think Les Mis showed not only the audience but ourselves that if we unite with one goal, with one purpose, we can make kind of magic happen. And that was one of the objectives of Les Mis. We thought, or I thought, when I thought about doing Les Mis, that my role as a producer in Venezuela was to protest or say something through what I know, which is producing theater, and personally. And I know after this became what we all thought. Putting Les Mis together at El Teatro Teresa Carreño at such trying times was the challenge, and the challenge was to put through that message, to allow people to see themselves in Les Mis and be transformed. And I think that's what we did for Venezuela last year. I think we made a difference. We made a difference through art.
But Claudia, that's why art, theater, music, we need it. We need arts.
Yes.
Because in arts, if you're not collaborating, if you don't have many people working together, putting their courage, their forces together, you can't achieve. And mainly in musical theater, because musical theater, it's a work of collaboration. So you have to collaborate with all the people. Exactly. If you want to be alone on stage and doing a solo, it's all right. But when you want to do such a big show, such a big scale, complexity, because in a show like Les Miserables, you have always each second 1 million good reason for the show to stop.
Of course.
And you know it better than anybody. And if you don't want to collaborate, to work together, to put your strengths together in all the arts, when you have a symphonic orchestra, when you have dance, when you have theater, play, you can do it.
Exactly.
That's why it's fantastic when people are coming from different horizons, from foreign countries and everything, as soon as they have a common purpose, a stage or a play or a musical to perform, That's where is the real goal and the real quality and genius of our work.
Exactly.
It's to put people together, because at the same time, it's not only true for the people working on stage or in the wings or in the theater, it's true for the audience too. Because an audience, it's part of the work. Without the work, you don't have a living art. And for the audience to be together, to share together, to enjoy together, to be happy together, it's very, very, very important. And in this time of what I'm calling the first world fear, because we never had that moment, that's why it's important that we stick together. But for the moment, we're trying our best to deliver something maybe later in the year in London, but with the bloody social distancing and all the problems of precaution, which I understand.
Yes.
But it makes everything even more difficult.
Yes. But we also understand, which is something I keep saying when I talk to people, is that theater is food for the soul. And it's very necessary, even in these trying times where it is obviously very hard to make it happen, as along the side of everything that's being done to, for people to work normally, we should be a primary need in these trying times. I mean, we should be attending to coming back to the theater eventually, taking, of course, all the measures to be safe. But we are necessary in society. We bring food for the soul. We actually bring something that is probably not tangible, but is its effect is probably more important than anything else. And
it's very important for what we call the mental health of a person or for the people of a country. You have a place in Greece called Delphi, and Delphi was a place where everybody had to go once in his life to spend 3 days. It was like being a pilgrim on a pilgrimage. The first day was having steam baths to clean the body, health, to take some baths, to hot baths and everything, cold baths, to be in great shape and dressed properly. The second day was to visit a kind of goddess called the Piti, and she was a fortune teller. You were able to ask her a question and she was telling you with fire and plenty of tricks if it's a good or a bad omen for you. But the third day, it was a final day, was a theater play. It means it was a tragedy written by Sophocles, all the great Greek writers. But there was a law. The drama was able to be performed only if it was helping the audience to solve their own problems. That was the rules. Okay. Because on stage, what you're supposed to say, it's a little bit of the story of the audience. And they call it the catharsis. It means that you have on stage a representation of yourself, trying to help you to solve your own problem. So of course, in those difficult times, or like in country of big poverty, it's not the priority for the people in the theater, even that in the poorest country, you have always a dance or you have always a kind of drama on the square of the village or anywhere. But on the scale of a show like Les Miserables and everything, it's not a priority, but it's always good. We need the art, and that's the work of the art too, because painting is the same, literature, the books are exactly the same, theater, play, and operas, music, and musicals. It's all to help the people to solve their own problems. And with Les Miserables, because of the novel, which is one of the greatest novels in the world, we manage sometimes to have people feeling different when they leave the theater than when they enter. Because it means that you have been bringing to the surface something that they had deep inside themselves. Yes. So of course we need theater, we need art.
I have an anecdote regarding that happens within the theater when people leave. I regularly, when the show is over, I usually come out to where the audience is coming out. And as I was standing, hearing the people crying or applauding or with this, euphoria of seeing the show, I overheard a lady saying, crying in tears, she's like, "I feel freedom." That for me was probably one of the most beautiful moments an audience member could have given me as a producer. Because when I heard that, I understood that exactly that was the reason why Les Mis was there. And that's why it took me 3 years to put it together. It was completely worth it when I heard just one person saying that she felt freedom. It's something I'm never gonna forget. It's a gift she gave me. Of course, I've shared this with the cast, with the team, and it was magical to receive that message like that, because I think we despite everything, we did that for our country. We did that for the people. We showed them a little bit of us, but we also gave them the hope of what we can be, what we are able to do with one goal, with magic, with probably very, very small resources, but the best resources, which is wanting to do something.
And I had somebody, I don't know if it was a lady or a man, who came to me after the show, and she told me, "But what's wonderful, it's tonight for me going to the theater," because she was a kind of 50, 60 years old. Mm-hmm. And she told me, "Going to the theater tonight to watch a show, it feels that I am living a normal life." And that's something too very important, that you are in a normal country, a normal life, and you want to go to the theater and you see a show. That's part. And of course, for the moment, we are totally on the West End, it's totally closed. It's like a disaster, because no theater are open, there is no restaurant, there is no shops, and it's not very good, and it's quite pathetic to see, but people need it, and I hope that as soon as we can resume the situation, it will be better.
It will. I'm sure it will, and hopefully Les Mis in Venezuela can be repeated. We can do that again. We can sing La Canción del Pueblo again, like you allowed us to do once they took their bow. For the first time, I've never seen that ever in any other musical, where at the bow song, when we were singing La Canción del Pueblo, people would take out flags, like if they were in a concert. It was very moving to see people with such emotion regarding that song and what it meant to us. I think that
it was very moving for me, because I never been in a country who gets such a close relation between the show and what's happening in their own land.
Yeah. And cast members who live it, who had lived it probably months earlier, And during our rehearsals, we had a lot of complications, you remember as well. And that only made us stronger to put on the show. We had to move the dates from May to October. It was a hard ride to get to the rehearsals and make it happen, but I think it built us character and it made us stronger to get there. And
what did you learn about yourself?
I learned from you, especially, that sometimes I have to say no. I learned that adding people to the experience, despite that it might make it a little harder, it changes you and it makes you aspire for better. Having you here, having Mariano here, put our standards pretty high. Standards we didn't have before. And it was a challenge for me. Of course, I wanted you here, but it was also very hard for us to take that challenge on, giving our difficulties. But I understood that within that challenge was the opportunity to learn from you. And I learned to produce differently because of this experience. I learned to assume projects differently because of Les Mis. And I know that looking forward to musical theater in Venezuela, I have a responsibility of educating all that want to work in the industry of musical theater, not only from acting perspective or performers. I think we all have a lot to learn in the world of musical theater, technical aspects, producing, all the creative aspects and the performing aspects was important to see where we're at, where we want to be, giving you gave us a standard that I wish to come to make justice here in the country. So I think I have a task to educate, and that's part of life, and it should be a part of this industry that I claim that we will be able to get there eventually and have lots of musical theater shows going on. But in order to get there, we still need to be educated.
I told you that when you're free, when the situation is back to normal, you can come to London and you can look at people working and how they work, because we are so lucky to work with so many people. They are the best in their profession. They are the top best on Broadway in the West End. So it's always very interesting. And even me during the rehearsals, I love to see Polly Constab. She's a lighting designer, very famous, very good. To see her vision, her artistic vision, the way they work, the organization. They have been working on all the procedure to reopen the theater. Mm-hmm. And at the end, they arrived with a book of 66 pages, wow, giving you all the procedures if you want to reopen the theater. And of course, it's quite difficult because Cameron owns 7 theaters in London, and a theater who is dark, a dark theater, it's like a plane on the ground. When the plane is not flying, he's losing money. So a dark theater, it's a place where you lose money every day. And it's very easy to close it. You just close the lock.
The lock, yeah.
To reopen it, it's a huge work. Yeah.
I believe in because I've always been told, why don't you leave Venezuela and go work in Broadway and start work in Broadway or work in the West End. I told you when you came that I believed in a bigger mission that was to make that possibility here. Because of course I want to go learn from the best, because I want that to happen here. I think that is the calling I chose for myself, to make a musical theater something important in Venezuela, something that brings employment and possibilities and tourism eventually to our country. And of course, I'm going to take your word on eventually coming back to London and learning from the best, because I believe I can learn and I can bring it back home.
And at the same time, here in England or on Broadway, they were not waiting for me from France to come. And so we had to arrive, Alain Boublil and me, with our own personality, with our French background, with our conception of what a musical must be. We didn't have any rule to break in France, because there is no tradition of musical theater, no school. So we did invent our own rules. And suddenly here, they saw it like something totally brand new that they never saw before. So we have to use, and I'm still using today, the fact that I'm French, I'm not thinking, I'm thinking a different way. And that's what you have to do. You're Venezuelan, and you have to think the way Venezuelans think.
Yes.
That's what Dudamel did with his orchestra. He was conducting with a fire, with enthusiasm that a lot of German conductor doesn't have. And it brings something to the audience. But of course, you have to learn basic rules that you understand, because definitely you're a bright girl.
Thank you.
But you understand it, and I'm sure it would be very beneficial for you to see at least how the different departments of the productions work, and if you can bring it to Venezuela, because that's where there is a work to do.
Yes.
For somebody like you. That's where you can create everything.
Yes.
And if you bring back all your knowledge and your expertise back to Venezuela, you can have a wonderful future in a country where they love music, they are very musicians, they love singers, they love voices, and they love the arts.
Exactly. That is the mission, Claude. I've accepted it, and I'm happy to do it. I'm motivated. This country motivates me, which is crazy. But I know you lived it with me a couple of days. I'm passionate about this country. I'm passionate about musical theater, and I'm passionate about working here towards the future of musical theater in Venezuela. And Les Mis was a big opportunity. It allowed me to meet you. It allowed me to meet Cameron, Thomas, the whole Les Mis team. I think we had a privileged experience, being able to see you at work, see the Les Mis team at work for the concert version, and I think that makes us unique. It made our experience very unique. Having you here, having Mariano here, was a blessing. We had Alfonso just for 24 hours, but
Yes, he told me. I'm going to see him tomorrow.
We love it. We miss him. We would have liked to have him on our opening night, but I think we had a different experience. It's part of our story now as a musical theater company, and it will be forever a part of the story of the country. And that's something I have to thank, because I never believed I was going to be able to get the rights to do Les Mis. I waited 4 months to get the response.
Okay, keep going. Because again, there is another saying, which is a Chinese saying, telling to fall 7 times and to stand up 8 times.
Exactly.
And that's the quality you have, because in that little office downstairs, I saw you, I don't know how many times, despair and falling, but you managed to stand up again and to go back to work.
Yes.
And that's the way it must happen, and that's a very good experience.
Thank you, Claude. It was hard, but I'm happy with the results. I'm looking forward to a next chapter in the Les Mis story in Venezuela. And I'm happy to be so close to celebrating our first anniversary and being part of this Les Mis family, which is probably something I dreamed of since I was very young. And to be speaking to you today and to have had you here and show you a little bit of what we can do was a great honor, was a wonderful experience, and I definitely look forward for it to happen again.
All right, I will come back. And in the meantime, say hello to everybody I met when I was there.
I will send this message to them. And I hope to see you next year.
I will speak to Adolfo, and I will see Mariano probably soon, because I don't know where he is, but he must be around.
Yeah, Mariano's in London. He's there. We saw him on Saturday.
I will see him in the next months.
Yes. So we'll see each other soon. Thank you.
When you're ready.
I'm always ready. So let's maybe have a little message from you to say happy anniversary to our team, and then and then we can say bye.
In 3 days, it's going to be the 8th of October, and we opened in London on the 8th of October 1985. So it will be exactly 35 years. And when we did open in Caracas, that was 1 year ago.
October 31st.
October 31st, yes. And I hope that respecting the social distancing, you can have a kind of feast, being all together, singing La Canción del Pueblo. And congratulations again to everyone. I will never forget my time in Caracas. And I hope to see you soon in a future production.
We will. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Hope to see you soon. Best to your family, to Alfonso and Mariano when you see them.
Happy anniversary to everybody. Okay?
Thank you very much. Besos.
Hasta la vista.
Hasta la vista. Thank you, Claude.
Bye.
Bye-bye.